Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us this afternoon. I have to tell you, I'm really, really excited about this discussion, and I hope you are too. I'm Shannon. I'm the Agenda 2030 Partnerships Manager here at UNICEF, and I'm going to be the moderator for today's session. But today, UNICEF is wearing a different hat. We're not here to tell you about all of the things that we're doing on sustainable development, but rather we're here to amplify what these 5 amazing individuals to my left are doing, and to provide a space for all of you to get inspired, to discuss challenges and solutions, to network, and basically to get active on becoming more sustainable. Because this is an existential issue for all of us, but especially for young people. I work on something called the Sustainable Development Goals, or SDGs for short. Show of hands, how many people have heard of the SDGs? Okay, probably more than the general public, that's good. But for those of you that don't know, these are 17 goals that were passed at the UN last year. All heads of state that are members of the UN agreed to them. And we often refer to them as the ultimate to-do list to make our world a better place for all of the people and the planet by the year 2030. And they cover topics ranging from extreme poverty to halting climate change to making sure that every child on the planet is healthy, gets a good education, and lives a life free from violence. Sounds pretty easy, right? Obviously not, and in fact, it seems pretty overwhelming for most people, including those of us that work on it every day. And I think that this can lead to us feeling paralyzed, like, what can I do to help, and will my individual actions even make a difference? And the answer is yes, it does make a difference. And when all of us are doing small things that can add up to real change, and that's the point of today. There are things that every single one of us sitting in this room can do to achieve the SDGs. And the people that you're going to hear from today are just a few examples of what we can do in our personal lives, or in our jobs, or in our studies to make that change. So after the discussion, and some of you have probably already seen it, there's going to be a chance for you to mingle with each other, network, swap ideas, and there's also a number of booths that showcase different projects that you can become involved with or learn about how you can be more sustainable. Before I introduce the panelist speakers, I'd like you to do 2 things before you leave. So you probably can't read it, but you can come up here after the event and see the exact details. But on our Instagram site, UNICEF SDGs, we've posted 2 questions. One is tell us one thing that you are going to do differently in your own life based on something that you learned today. We don't want you to just learn, we want you to get active. And 2 is tell us a topic that you'd like to discuss at the next Activate talk. Because here's some additional good news, we don't see this as a one-off. If all of you and other young people in this community are interested and committed, UNICEF would like to continue to make this space available for you to learn about and discuss critically important issues. So without further delay, I'm going to introduce you to each of the 5 panelists, and I'm going to ask them to explain a little bit of what they're doing. First, to my immediate left, we have Andrea Bergueno. She's a design strategist and recent grad of Parsons who aims to meld her passion for design with ethical values. She recently worked on a project called Goodfill, which aims to safely gather and use discarded but still edible food within New York City. Next, we have Ovi Muheli, as I learned earlier today. In case anyone's wondering who the NFL football player on the panel is, that's him. So in addition to being a former professional football player for the Atlantic Falcons and Baltimore Ravens, Ovi does a lot of work with young people on becoming more sustainable through his organization, the Ovi Muheli Foundation. Next, we have Melissa O. Young. She's the lead for community engagement at Airbnb, one of the hottest startups of the last decade, and also a trailblazer in the ever-increasing share economy space. She's also the founder of Let's Collaborate, an organization promoting the share economy in New York City. Next, we have Lauren Singer, who has documented her amazing journey towards a zero waste lifestyle through her blog, Trash is for Tossers, and she's also the founder of the Simply Company. And finally, Sean Southey, CEO of PCI Media Impact and co-founder of Comics Uniting Nations, on how to effectively communicate with children to inspire positive behavior change. Andrea, over to you.
Hi, I'm Andrea Burgueño, and I'm a strategic designer, and I'm all about understanding human behaviors and finding new meanings for the everyday. I believe in the power of using cross-disciplinary skills with design methods in order to identify opportunities for innovation. And my work relies in the intersection of the design of strategies, concepts, interactions, and experiences. I'm now a fellow at the New Challenge and for the project Goodfill that is being showcased here. And thank you so much for the invitation. I'm very excited to share with you all my work.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Ovi Muheli. Like Shannon said, former All-Pro fullback for the Atlanta Falcons and Baltimore Ravens. I'm just excited at the room. I'm excited to be here. I'm excited to work with these great minds and people doing some amazing things because, a little selfishly, I'm just trying to do what's best for my kids. What's best for my kids is best for all kids, which is giving them the best planet possible, giving them the best environment possible. Now, people ask me all the time, why is a two-time All-Pro NFL fullback who's made lots of money, a lot of fans, you have everything you want, why are you in the environmental space? Why are you one of the first people to have an environmental foundation? Why do you care about going green? Why is hugging trees and saving butterflies and getting excited about polar bears drinking Coke? Why is that something that you're into? And I'm like, it's not that. It's bigger than that. The environment's about people, and I can do everything for my kids. I can give them the best cars, the best houses, the best car seats, the best toys, the best everything. I can't give them the best environment. I can't do it by myself. I can't give them the best air quality, water quality, the best planet. I just can't do that by myself. That involves me changing minds. That involves me changing hearts. That involves me changing the concept and the conversation that we have. Playing with some of the greatest to play the sport was an amazing experience with guys like Deion Sanders, or Ray Lewis, and Tony Gonzalez, and even Matt Ryan back in Atlanta. I've been on the same fields as Brett Favre, and these giants, these just incredible people who have tens of millions of followers and fans. But football's great, but it's a game. It's a game. This thing called life, it's not a game. We have a chance to do something special here. We have a chance to not just be people who talk but don't back it up. I hear all the time people say about how, my kids are my life. I'll do anything for my children. I'll get in front of a moving car for my kids. I want to give them the best. But when it comes to actually doing the things that get you there, and you tell them about the environment, yeah, that's someone else's problem. You tell them about sustainability, that's someone else's issue. You talk about global warming and climate change, that's a political issue, I'm not getting involved in that. Put your money where your mouth is. Don't say you care about people and then not do the things that actually give them the results that you want. So I got in the environmental space because my wife's sitting over to the right, and we both went through a journey where my last two children were born severely premature. One was born 2 pounds, one was born at 3 pounds. I can hold my child in my hand. It was a painful, scary, life-changing experience for me. But it got even worse when we were in the NICU watching my baby grow in a little containment thing and hoping that we can take her home and him home. And the doctor both times said that you can take your kid home, but because of the air quality in the city you live in, it won't be safe right now. So you might want to wait a little bit longer, or you can take him home with oxygen. I'm like, wait. You're telling me that the air quality in the city I live in is so bad that it's going to affect the lungs of the child that I brought into this world who I'm responsible for? Like, yes. So do you want oxygen or you want to keep your child here? And it just blew my mind about something that I really didn't think was my problem or my issue. It just blew my mind about how I claim to do everything for my kids, but I've never really even given a second thought about the environment. So I knew that not everyone cared about the environment, but everyone cared about sports. So I started to use sports to promote sustainability. I started to use other ways to get people excited about going green. You know, I'm working with Comics United Nations, and I have a comic book coming out as well, Gridiron Green. So it's just trying to find some ways to make, you know, going green exciting, ways to make going green fun, the ways to make going green matter. Thank you.
Hi everyone, my name is Melissa. I started my career in the sustainability space. I was in marketing. I kept hearing about this thing called climate change, and then I wanted to pursue a career in it, but I didn't know how. So what did I do? Well, I went to school and studied again. I went to King's College in London and did an environmental science degree. And during that time, I came across this concept of collaborative consumption, also known as the sharing economy today. And does everyone know what the sharing economy is? You want to raise your hand if you do? Okay, for those that don't know, the sharing economy is basically this concept of renting, sharing, swapping stuff, rather than just buying stuff and maybe storing it in your home or throwing it away. And I did my thesis on it in 2010 because I thought it was really interesting that in the world there's a lot of stuff. There's a lot of stuff wasted. For example, 1/3 of the food in the world goes to waste, and 75% of cars on the road are occupied by one person at a time. So what the sharing economy does is it uses technology to connect people to one another. So you can swap things, you can rent things, you can rent cars, or you can rent homes. And when I studied this in 2010, this opened up my world because the sharing economy became a more and more important thing. So I worked for the UK government advising them on this concept. And when I moved to New York, I was back in a marketing company, but I was still very passionate about the sharing economy. So I started getting people together to talk about it. And it started off with 4 people at a cafe that I met through Twitter, that I met through friends. And then it became a little bigger. I branded it. I got more people together. I got panelists to speak. And then I had a network of 1,500 people who were very values-driven, who were passionate about sustainability, and who were creating a movement about the sharing economy. I didn't know what I was doing was building community. To me, it was just getting like-minded people together to chat about things I was passionate about. But now I am in a space where I'm employed for it. So I build community for Airbnb. We're in 34,000 cities in 190 countries. So it's a different community, it's a lot bigger. But it's the same concepts of getting people together, getting them connected, getting like-minded people together, and the power of that.
Hey, I'm Lauren Singer, and I have a blog called Trashes for Tossers, where I talk about living a zero waste or no trash lifestyle. Has anyone heard of living a zero waste lifestyle? Show of hands. Sick audience. Cool. I also have a company called The Simply Co, where we make organic vegan laundry detergent with just 3 ingredients. So for me, everything started 4 years ago when I decided to stop making trash. And this was effectively because I really cared about the environment, like a lot. I studied environmental studies at NYU. I learned about the fracking the topic of fracking and oil and gas extraction, and I became really passionate against the oil and gas industry and was going to DC to lobby against the oil and gas industry constantly. I was always talking about, how bad politicians were and how bad big corporations were, and I was always pointing my finger outward at everyone else, trying to blame them for the state of our environment. Because if anyone has picked up a newspaper in the past 5 years, you can see that the situation isn't that great, right? So I used to blame everyone else for the issues and the things that were happening in the environment, and it wasn't until my senior year, my last class that I had to take as an environmental studies major, when I saw this girl in my class, and every day she would bring in dinner. She would have this big plastic bag with a plastic clamshell full of food, and a plastic fork and knife, and a plastic bag of chips, and a plastic drink. Well, the drink wasn't plastic, but the bottle was. And she would eat everything and then just throw it in the trash. And I'd be like, what are you doing, right? Because we're here studying environmental science. We're in the last class that we have to take as environmental science majors, learning how to make the world a more sustainable place, and she was making so much trash. And I thought she was literally the worst human on the face of the earth. And one day after class, I went home to make dinner, and I opened up my refrigerator, and I saw that every single thing in there was packaged in plastic. And I felt like the biggest hypocrite ever. One, because I had been talking so much garbage about this girl every day in my head for the whole semester. And two, because I was using a ton of plastic, and for 2 years I had been protesting against the oil and gas industry, and one of the biggest things that they produce is plastic. So in my everyday consumption habits, I was actively supporting an industry that I was also actively protesting against. And it was so hypocritical. And so I realized that I had to make a change, and I stopped using plastic. And I realized really quickly that that was super hard, because if you look around, you guys are all sitting on plastic, so, not the easiest. And I realized that I couldn't just buy my way out of plastic. And I started doing research and found the zero waste lifestyle, which is, in essence, just not sending any garbage to landfill. And to me, it was the most empowering thing that I ever learned, because I thought that caring about the environment and not making plastic trash was the best thing that I could do for my environmental impact. But learning that I didn't have to make any trash at all, that I could prevent 4.5 pounds of trash that the American person throws into landfill each day from going to landfill, was the most exciting thing that I ever learned. And so I decided to stop making garbage, and it's been 4 years. And then from there, I started my company to make it easier for people to make choices to lower their environmental impact.
Hi, what a great panel to be on. My name is Sean. I run an NGO next door at the church building right next door called PCI Media Impact. I'm a trained environmental economist. I spent 5 years in the Canadian government and then 12 years with the United Nations Development Program. And I worked with great people, and they were doing powerful programs thoughtfully. I lived in Malawi, Egypt, India, and I realized one day that in this UN program professional world, we're very, very good at singing to the choir, at talking to the converted. And I became fascinated with how do you get everyday people involved in the everyday decisions that actually change the world. Because that's what makes a difference. Not a million people doing great things, but 1 billion people doing something. And so I left the UN and I joined the NGO world, and I took over an NGO called PCI Media Impact that really works to try and motivate and inspire and engage people in allowing them to understand and make the decisions that can make the world a better place. We believe in what's called entertainment education. We think if you tell people what to do, they're really unlikely to do it. We don't like to be preached to, we don't like didactic scenarios, and we like to be empowered. So we have produced about 6,000 episodes of TV and radio drama. And in those dramas, you have good characters and bad characters and transitional characters. We've created songs with musicians, the top rap stars of Liberia, Guinea, Sierra Leone, because young people and many people have a deep affection to music. But one of the newest projects I'm really excited about is something that we've been honored to work with at UNICEF, and particularly with Shannon and Kali, is something called Comics Uniting Nations. How many of you go to Comic-Con? Wow, that's the lowest hands up we've had of any of the hands up. You guys know what the SDGs are more than Comic-Con. So I have a 18-year-old daughter who's been pulling me to Comic-Con since she was about 12. And if you go to Comic-Con, you've got 175,000 people avid about what they do. You have about 50 million people signed up on Facebook as I like comics. Now, how many of you on your Facebook feed have actually taken the time to fill out those categories of what you like? Hands up? Again, almost none. So if that many people have taken the time to say, I love comics, there's probably a huge, huge comic following. If we look at the top 10 movies these days, what's the big hit this weekend? Someone knows, right? Dr. Strangelove, a comic. Something like 7 of the last 10 big films last year were for comics. And we decided if we want to reach everyday people around the world, why not use comics? So we have now created 6 different comics on the Sustainable Development Goals. A lovely house franchise called Night Stars did a comic with us on hunger. We have an introduction to the Sustainable Development Goals. We have a climate change comic called Chakra with an Indian production house. My favorite, I have to say, the gender swapping Chakra comic where a young boy wakes up as his young neighbor who's a girl. He spends the day as an Indian girl instead of an Indian superhero. It's quite a lovely story, and at the end they both decide to be superheroes. And a series of others. I'm super excited by this one. Does anyone recognize the shoulders on the panel? This is Gridiron Green. This is Ove's new production coming out. And we have 2 coming out this week in celebration of the Climate Change COP. We have one coming out with a wonderful man called Dennis, who produces for Hippo Works, and another one with a colleague, friend of mine called Felix Dodds, who's doing one on Santa Claus. Because who has a better connection to snow than Santa Claus, and therefore climate? So it's a real pleasure to be here, and working with UNICEF all over the world. There's no better group to actually reach out and touch everyday people than UNICEF does. So thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Can we get a round of applause for the panel? Because I'm just amazed by everything that they're doing. And they're actually doing stuff, not just talking about it.